Hi, Assassins! I'm Brooke.
And I'm Cami.
Welcome to Bookish Realms.
We're just two girls who can't stop talking about fantasy books.
Welcome to our deep dives of Heir of Fire. This episode covers chapters 52 through 58 of Heir of Fire. Like in past episodes, the chapter summaries and character discussion are spoiler-free, but the rest of the pod does include spoilers for all of Throne of Glass. This podcast is for mature audiences only. Cami, take it away, girl.
Let's get into some chapter summaries. As a reminder, this is a non-spoiler section where we summarize the chapters we'll cover in this episode. So if you haven't read the entire series, but you have read chapters 52 through 58 of Heir of Fire, you can listen to this section. Chapter 52. Celaena steps outside the Mistward barrier and unleashes her fire magic against the creatures, who turn out to be Valg princes. They recognize her sword as Goldrin, once wielded by the legendary Brannon. Just when things are taking a turn for the worse, Rowan's cadre pops up to offer backup. Chapter 53. But even with help, these creatures are brutal. Their darkness hits Celaena hard, dragging her into all her worst memories, fears, and pain. She's trapped inside her mind, reliving her past over and over again. Chapter 54. We flash back to Aelin's childhood in Terrasen. She meets young Prince Dorian when the King of Otterland visits her parents' court. During a feast, the king secretly tests Aelin's magic, so her mom gives her the Amulet of Orinth for protection. That very night, Aelin's parents are murdered. She only survives because Marion sacrifices herself. That memory, Marion's death, is the one that Celaena has been too afraid to face for over 10 years. In the present, the Valg want to keep her alive to use her power, but memories of her past help her fight back. Chapter 55. Rowan shares his magic with Celaena through their Karanan bond, and she finally finds her strength. Fire explodes from her. Narok and the Valg princes are reduced to ashes. Chapter 56. Back in Rifthold, Kael and Dorian experiment with Dorian's magic and figure out just how the king used word marks to wipe out magic. Chapter 57. After the battle, Celaena and Rowan head to Doranel to confront Maeve. Also, during her Valg attack flashback, Celaena realized the Amulet of Orinth isn't just a family heirloom. It's actually the third and final word key. And who has that amulet? Arab and Hamel. Chapter 58. Word of Celaena's fiery triumph against the Valg princes spreads fast. Aedi and Kael, Ren, and Murtaugh hear the news back in Rifthold. Across Otterland, people begin to hope again. The Queen of Terrasen has returned. She's back from the dead, baby. I'm back.
Period. Love her. Welcome to character discussion. Here we'll do a quick recap of the characters from this set of chapters. For our main characters, we will discuss who they are, what we know, and give a golden line from this set of chapters. As always, this section will remain spoiler-free. For the quick recap of characters, we will discuss Vaughn, Lorcan, Gabriel, and Marion. First up, we have Vaughn. He is one of the 6 cadre, and he is described as having dark eyes, and his animal form is some type of animal with some big-ass wings. Next up, we have Lorcan. He is also one of the 6 cadre, and he is described as having dark hair and is demi-fae. He does not have a second form. Next up, we have Gabriel. In Heir of Fire, Gabriel is a fae warrior bound by a blood oath to Maeve, yet he still shows a little loyalty to his friends, especially Rowan. Despite the risk of punishment, he warns Celaena about Maeve and offers his help, reflecting a deep sense of honor and compassion. Gabriel's kindness and willingness to help, even when bound by duty, shows his inner conflict and the strength of his loyalty. Alright, next up we have Lady Marion. Marion, a former laundress, becomes Lady Marion after marrying Lord Lochan and bearing him a daughter named Elide. She shares a deep bond with Aelin, having cared for her during her youth. When Aelin was younger, she became a key protector. Marion steps in to help Aelin escape, risking her own life to ensure Aelin's safety. Despite her small stature, Marion shows immense bravery, wielding daggers to defend her home and family. In a heart-wrenching moment, she sacrifices herself for Aelin, ultimately dying at the hands of a powerful man, ensuring that Aelin has the chance to survive. R.I.P. Lady Marion. Next up, we have our main characters. For the main characters for chapters 52 through 58, we will discuss Celaena and Rowan. First up, let's start with Celaena. In this set of chapters, Celaena is facing a rough-ass battle with some Valg princes. She is using her magic to create shields to protect herself, but everyone else as well. And she is starting to burn out. She's pushing her physical and emotional limits as she continues to fight on like the queen she is. She reflects on her past failures, losing Nehemia, the death of her parents, and the guilt she feels for not saving them. The Valg princes are seriously fucking with her and feeding off of her pain and misery, and Celaena is overwhelmed by feelings of worthlessness and being a coward. She remembers the pain that she endured in Endovir, the abuse she suffered, and the people she couldn't protect. Despite her exhaustion, she continues to push herself to keep fighting, but it's feeling like there is no escape from her memories or the overwhelming darkness that haunts her. She struggles with self-loathing, but is also beginning to recognize that she can't stay in this darkness forever. At the end of this set of chapters, she can summon a drop of water, symbolizing her growth and potential to master all aspects of her magic. Celaena's golden line from this set of chapters is, "Once upon a time," she said to him, to the world, to herself, "in a land long since burned to ash, there lived a young princess who loved her kingdom very much." Next up, we have Rowan. Let's just say Rowan is really going through it in these sub-chapters. He is in a desperate state, fighting against his own instincts and emotions. Gabriel is literally having to physically hold him back from running towards Celaena and the Valg, but Rowan is like, fuck that, he wants to use his power to save Celaena. He is haunted by his memories of Lyria, who is his lost mate, whose voice is tormenting him, trying to urge him into the Valg's possession. Despite Gabriel holding him back, Rowan is determined to fight and save Aelin. Which, okay, sir, seems like you really do like her. LOL. But his emotions are high. Who would have thought a 19-year-old would have his blood pressure through the roof? Rowan's golden line from this set of chapters is, "I claim you too, Aelin Galathynius."
Let's explore this world. Here we cover the main world-building elements that come up in chapters 52 through 58. We'll revisit these places and world-building elements in other episodes. For today, this section is not spoiler-free, so if you haven't finished the entire series, please do not continue. But please come back when you have. Let's talk the Amulet of Orinth, aka the third and final word key. The Amulet of Orinth is one of the most important heirlooms of House Galathynius. It is a round, palm-sized disc with a cerulean front. Set into it is a white stag, carved from horn gifted by the Lord of the North. Between the stag's antlers burns a crown of gold, which represents the immortal star that watches over the Galathynius line and guides the way home to Terrasen. The back of the amulet is actually etched with word marks. Aelin eventually realizes that these word marks spell out a warning. Nameless is my price. The message was written by Brandon Galathynius, the first king of Terrasen and the creator of the amulet. It was meant for the descendant who would one day be forced to gather all three word keys and sacrifice themselves to forge the lock. What most never realized is that the Amulet of Orinth was not just a symbol of power, it contained one of the three word keys. Brandon forged the amulet as a vessel to hide the final key. Over generations, it was passed down through the royal family, granting its wearers unseen protection and strength. This hidden power helped Terrasen thrive. The kingdom remained stable, prosperous, and free of corruption. Terrasen became a powerhouse not through conquest, but through quiet strength. The amulet was last worn by Evelyn Ashriver, Aelin's mother. On the night before her assassination, she gave the amulet to Aelin. When Aelin escaped and fell into the Florian River, she believed the amulet had been lost. In truth, it was taken by Arobin Helmel, who kept it hidden for years. In this set of chapters, Aelin begins to piece together the amulet's true nature and that Arobin stole it. During a memory forced on her by the Valg princes, she relives a moment with her mother and realizes the amulet was never just a keepsake.
This is our analysis and foreshadowing section, which is not spoiler-free. We will break down parts of the text that tie into or foreshadow future events in the series. If you have not read all of Throne of Glass, please do not fucking continue, okay? Let's start with our recap. Previously on Heir of Fire, Celaena and Rowan started piecing together the truth about the monsters they're hunting and realized they're connected to the creatures Celaena faced back in Otterlin. Things only get worse when they discover General Narok and his squad of Valg creatures were setting up to attack Mistward. They tried to set a trap, but it backfires fast. Luckily, they pulled off a crazy move and led the creatures straight to the flesh pedestrians, which we don't say that word around here. Back at Mistward, Rowan went into commander mode, while Celaena learned a devastating truth. The king had slaughtered every slave in Caliculla and Endovir. It's a loss that hit her and all of Otterlin hard. But even with their grief, she and Rowan find strength in each other. They prepare to face whatever comes next, together. Then it hits. Narok's forces have arrived, and the Valg are there, and the soldiers snuck in through a secret tunnel. Mistward is officially under siege. Meanwhile, in Rifthold, Kael, Dorian, and Adian are dealing with the news of the slave massacres. Everyone is shaken. And the witches, Manon and Abraxos, crush the crossing. Eat shit, Mother Blackbeak. Fuck you.
Let's start in Mistward. Celaena steps beyond the wards to defend Mistward, using her fire to shield the wall and hold off the Valg. Their dark power hits hard, but she won't give up an inch. When the Valg attack with swords, she fights back, flames trailing down her blade. It's the same sword she found at the lake. The creatures recoil in rage and shock. That's when one of them hisses the name of her sword, Goldrin. The Valg recognize her sword, but also recognize that she is not Athril or Brandon of the Wildfire. Selena starts putting the pieces together and realizes just what she's facing off against. Quote, "How do you," but the words caught in her throat as a memory struck from months ago, a lifetime ago, of a realm that was in between, of the thing that lived inside Cain speaking to her and Elena. Elena, daughter of Brannon. "You were brought back," it said, "all the players in the unfinished game. A game that had begun at the dawn of time, when a demon race had forged the word keys and used them to break into this world, and Maeve had used their power to banish them. But some demons had remained trapped in Aurelia and waged a second war centuries later, when Elena fought against them. What of the others who had been sent back to their realm? What if the King of Otterlin, in learning of the keys, had also learned where to find them, where to harness them? Oh gods, you are the Valg," she breathed. This is the first time that, we have made this realization. She starts by remembering something that the creature inside Cain said months ago about Elena and how all the players in the unfinished game were returning. That line definitely hits different now because the details of the game are being revealed little by little, and it goes back to the dawn of time when the Valg forged the word keys. If you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we've got major Massverse theories around this unfinished game quote. You can look to our socials where we'll reshare those theories. But Selena realizes that the King of Otterlin must have found out about the Valg and the word keys and used that knowledge to bring them back. Her whole realization of "you are the Valg" is a huge moment because it is officially when these are the villains of our story. These aren't just random monsters, they are part of something bigger and older than Selena ever imagined.
And the Valg confirm. They tell Selena that they are the princes of their realm. When she asks them what realm that is exactly, they answer, quote, "A realm of eternal dark and ice and wind," he said, "and we have been waiting a very, very long time to taste your sunshine again." Given everything that we have learned so far about the Valg and everything that we will learn in the series, this honestly tracks. Yeah, you hit the mark there, buddy. The Valg say that their realm is of dark and ice and wind. It also makes sense why they fear Aylin's power, because her power is light and warmth, which is the complete opposite of theirs. But despite these creatures being evil, they want to taste the sunshine. It again calls into question the nature of good and evil in the Massverse. Why would inherently bad creatures crave sunshine? We can also see that they've been waiting specifically to taste Aylin's fire, her power, and her lineage. Regardless, this is our first introduction to our official villains, and what they share immediately sets up a familiar ancient conflict, dark versus light. And I know at some point we will be having a good versus evil episode coming on this podcast, so stay tuned for that as well too, because we'll dive a little deeper into that.
Selena's next thought after confirming that these are the Valg, the King of Otterlin. Quote, "The King of Otterlin was either more powerful than she could imagine, or the most foolish man to ever live if he thought he could control these demon princes." Aylin, hold on to that thought because you are so right, girl. In Queen of Shadows, we learned that her intuition was right because the king asks her, "Have you come to save me at last, Aelin Galathinius?" The king admits that he was young and stupid when he got mixed up with the Valg and has now been essentially possessed for decades. He couldn't control the Valg, really no one could, and throughout the years, he tried a few times to fight back, but was unsuccessful.
Selena keeps fighting the Valg princes, even as her magic burns through her and her body begins to fail. She's bleeding, coughing up blood, and Groldrin is growing heavier in her hand. Our girl is really fucking struggling here, but still, of course, she tries to hold on to the hope that Rowan will come to help her. During this face-off, the Valg revealed that they were never beaten, only contained, but they were let back into this realm by the king. As the battle rages and her magic fades, Selena starts to believe this might be the end. Quote, "She had not imagined it would end like this, and maybe it was what she deserved, after turning her back on her kingdom." Selena's shame is what holds her fucking back. She thinks that she has failed her people, failed Nehemia, failed everyone. So now, standing between the Valg and Mistward, she is ready to die. She's like, it's my time. Because she's convinced herself that she deserves whatever punishment the world decides to hand her. And yes, she has to learn to control her magic and shift into her Fae form, but this shame is her biggest hurdle to reclaiming her name and her identity.
And Maeve's cadre has officially entered the chat. The 5 powerful Fae warriors arrived just in time. 2 wolves, aka Fenris and Connell, a massive mountain cat, aka Gabriel, a towering male, aka Lorcan, and an osprey, aka Vaughn. Or Vaughn? I don't know. It's just Vaughn. Whatever. This is one of the only times we see this man. Selena is absolutely wrecked, but still fighting. She uses the last of her strength to create a flaming bridge through the darkness so that they can reach the fortress in health. As they pass, none of them stop except Gabriel. He pauses and sees how badly Selena is struggling, but she tells him to keep going because Rowan is inside. Quote, Rowan's friends had come. Good. Good that he would not be alone, that he had people in the world. Brooke said this, but this is another one of the many hints that we get that Selena is ready to die protecting Mistward. She's glad the cadre is there because if she does die, at least Rowan will have his friends there for support. Selena doesn't want Rowan to be alone because she knows how alone he's felt for centuries now, and she might be leaving him alone again.
I also just think this is so interesting here that Gabriel is the one that stops, because considering like the fact that Gabriel and Aelin, like even though they're not like technically considered blood relatives, like Gabriel is Aedian's father. So I just think that's very interesting.
I think it's because he still thinks that there's a possibility she might be his daughter. He doesn't find out she's 19 until the end of this. So
Yeah,
he's like,
you are right.
yeah.
I might be your papa. Shit's crazy. But I mean, they end up like having some sort of blood tie, I guess. Aedian is the one. But Selena is losing the fight, and as the darkness closes in, she's consumed by hopelessness, feeling like her vows to Nehemia, her throne, and even her name are meaningless. She's exhausted, too tired to even move. And then we switch to Rowan's POV. During the battle, Rowan learns that Baz betrayed them by letting in the enemy through the tunnel. Quote, the scout leader, Baz, had let them in. Luca had told Rowan. The other demi-fae who had conspired with Baz wanted the power the creatures offered, wanted a place in the world. This betrayal and its reasoning is a small detail in the grand scheme of the book, but it continues the themes we see within the entire series. The demi-fae have been oppressed, neglected, and sectioned off from the full-blooded fae. And the oppressed often long for power because they've lived too long without it. And the demi-fae who side with Baz aren't simply traitors, they were honestly desperate. They wanted a place in the world, a chance to matter, to be seen, and that desire is deeply human, even for fae. But it's also dangerous. The tragedy of it all, that the seeking the power through the vow, they turn to the very forces that would destroy them. This entire betrayal shows how easily oppression can be twisted into vulnerability, and then into corruption. What happens when the powerless are offered power, but only at the cost of their soul?
Thankfully, Rowan's cadre joins the fight inside Mistward, and Rowan races to try to find Aelin. He spots her, but it's not good. Quote, she had lied to him. She had wanted to save lives, yes, but she had gone out there with no intention of saving her own. This is one of the many times our girl will give Rowan a fucking heart attack by making herself the sacrificial lamb. This is literally the start of a pattern. From early on in the series, Aelin shows that she's willing to trade her life if it means defeating evil or saving others. That is just who she is. So this behavior really does track for us. When the full meaning of the Nameless is My Price prophecy is revealed, it feels devastating, but also inevitable, because Aelin's always been okay with dying for the world as long as it means the people she loves get to live. And we see that here. That's why in Kingdom of Ash, she doesn't hesitate to push Dorian out of the in-between and forge the lock alone, because she's always been okay with sacrificing herself. Rowan tries to run to Aelin, but Gabriel tackles him to stop him, forcing Rowan to watch as the Valak Prince pulls Aelin into its arms, her flames go out, and the darkness consumes her.
In that darkness, we enter a series of flashbacks. The first flashback flickers back and forth between the night Aelin's parents were murdered and when she discovered Nehemia's corpse. The Valak are forcing her to relive the two most traumatic moments of her life. Aelin refers to these moments as, quote, two fractures in her soul. Nehemia calls her a coward, and Aelin, crushed by guilt and despair, doesn't deny it. She vomits, staggers, and gives in to the memory, saying, I know, I know. The Valak aren't rushing to kill her because they're feeding on her pain and guilt. During this flashback attack, Selena describes how it feels to her. Quote, the darkness had no end and no beginning. It was the abyss that had haunted her steps for 10 years, and she free fell into it, welcomed it. There was no sound, only the vague sense of going towards a bottom that might not exist, or that might mean her true end. Maybe the Valak princes had devoured her, turning her into a husk. Maybe her soul was forever trapped here, in this plunging darkness. Perhaps this was hell. The Valg attack, the darkness, mirrors that abyss that has haunted her for 10 years. 10 fucking years. The Valg magic doesn't create something new. It's using your own grief and pain against you. And every Valg attack is deeply personal. Aelin often compares both of her power and her pain to this abyss. And this moment brings them both together. Selena is slipping further into this darkness/abyss, both physically and emotionally. Giving in almost feels like a sense of relief to her. And again, we see that the Valg attacks feel like hell because she's literally living in like her own personal hell right now, replaying this back and forth because we know that her being called a coward was something that she deeply feared, and then that's being replayed in her head. Her parents, like all that stuff is her own personal hell.
The flashbacks continue. The Valg drag Aelin through her worst memories, forcing her to relive every failure. Nehemia's death, Endovier, Sam, Kale's betrayal. But the memories are also being changed and twisted. In one of the flashbacks/hallucinations, Sam and Nehemia take turns whipping her, joined by a line of people that she believes she failed. And again, we've talked about this so much, but Aelin welcomes this punishment. She feels like the pain is justice for all the people that she feels like she's failed. Selena realizes that she didn't step past the barrier to win. She stepped out there to break, to burn out, and to die. Just like she stepped in Endovier, she's choosing pain over fighting. But just when it seems the fall into darkness is endless, they hit the frozen river at the bottom of her soul. This is both a metaphorical and literal river, the Florine River, where Aelin drowned after running from the Valg when she was younger.
As we enter the frozen river, we enter the longest and most detailed flashback so far. This flashback starts in Orinth. A young Aelin watches from the balcony as the King of Adarlan and his son arrive in Orinth with full royal dramatics. Trumpets, flags, armor, and tense silence. Everyone in the palace is on edge, and though no one explains why, even Aedion and Lady Marian act differently. Aelin can feel that this visit is dangerous and deeply important, and immediately we learn exactly how Aelin feels about the king. Quote, she hated the King of Adarlan. He did not smile, not when he stalked into the throne room to greet her uncle and parents, not when he introduced his eldest son, Crown Prince Dorian Haviliard, and not when they came to the Great Hall for the largest feast she'd ever seen. He'd only looked at her twice so far. Once during that initial meeting, and when he stared at her long and hard enough that her father had demanded to know what he found so interesting about his daughter, and her whole court had tensed. But she hadn't broken his dark stare. She hated his scarred, brutish face and furs, hated the way he ignored his dark-haired son, who stood like a pretty doll beside him, his manners so elegant and graceful, his pale hands like little birds as they moved. Even as a kid, Aelin can sense that something is just really off about the king. His vibe is really cold and unsettling. And it doesn't help that the king obviously takes a special interest in Aelin and keeps staring at her, which makes the whole situation even more tense. Like, what a creep. Like, literal creepy. Later, in Queen of Shadows, we learn that the king's stare is both a warning and a cry for help. But in the moment, like, it is a little creepy. Like, you're staring at a little child. Weird. But anyways, like, we get to understand why later. The Val recognize Aelin's fire magic, and the king is staring at her because the real king, the human king, is still inside him, trying to fight back against the Valg that possessed him. Along with the weird staring, Aelin also hates how the king treats Dorian, just basically ignoring and dismissing him, which is something that continues to happen throughout this series, until he dies, obviously.
The King of Adarlan stares at Aelin a second time during the feast, and she says it feels like he can see through to her bones. Her court stays alert and alarmed, ready for anything. Dorian sits at a table with Aelin and Aedion. Aelin tries to break the ice by teasing Dorian about his perfect manners, telling him that he eats like a fine lady. Dorian replies that he eats like a prince, but we can already see the signs of the pressure and expectations that Dorian lives under. Dorian looks away, and Aelin feels bad because Dorian is still just being ignored by his father and his court. Quote, he'd already looked down at his food again, as if he expected to be neglected for the rest of the night. And he looked lonely enough that she said, if you like, you could be my friend. Not one of the men around them said anything or coughed. Dorian lifted his chin. I have a friend. He is to be Lord of Aniel someday, and the fiercest warrior in the land. This moment is so sweet. It's actually in my favorite moments. It's just so cute. Even as kids, we can see how Aelin takes note of Dorian. She notices how lonely and isolated he feels. We've called him a lonely prince like a million times on this podcast. Aelin doesn't see Dorian as the prince of an enemy kingdom, but just as a kid who's being pushed aside by the people who are supposed to care about him. Aylin's family and her court don't treat her like this, and that makes her want to be nice to Dorian. She offers Dorian her friendship despite how tense this whole meeting has been. We see how this echoes throughout the series. She offers him her friendship again as Selena and then again when she returns as Aylin. And Dorian's response literally almost set me over the edge when he says, I have a friend. He is to be Lord of Aniel someday and the fiercest warrior in the land. Even as kids, the bond that Dorian and Kale have is so strong and unshakable. Dorian doesn't say, I have friends, plural. He has one friend, and that is all that he needs. This moment between them is so sweet, but also shows us that these two characters have always been who we know them to be. Aylin is compassionate, and Dorian is loyal.
But again, things take a turn quickly. Aylin starts to feel her magic surge uncontrollably, reacting to something. She tries to calm herself with water, but it only gets worse. Aylin turns to her mother, burning hot with magic, and when her mother touches her arm, she realizes Aylin is burning up. And then something attacks. Her head gave a throb, a blast of pain, and then a wriggling, squirming inside her head, a worm of darkness pushing its way in. Her magic roiled, thrashing, trying to get it out, to burning it up, to saving them both. But Aylin, get it out, she rasped, pushing at her temples as she backed away from the table. Two of the foreign lords grabbed Dorian from the table and swept him from the room. Her magic bucked like a saline as the worm wriggled farther in. Get it out. Aylin, her father was on his feet now, hand on his sword. Half the others were standing too, but she flung out a hand to keep them away, to warn them. Blue flame shot out. Two people dove in time to avoid it, but everyone was on their feet as the vacated seats went up in flames. That worm of darkness is right in line with all the other Valg mind attacks we have seen so far. After this flashback, Aylin realizes the king had used that power to attack her, but she doesn't learn why until Queen of Shadows. In Queen of Shadows, we do learn that the king purposefully visited and tried to trigger Aylin to use her magic to burn the Valg out of him. This was one of the king's attempts at fighting back against the Valg, but it failed because Aylin's mom uses a wall of water magic to drown out her fire. Unfortunately, this display of Aylin's magic is actually what leads to the death of her parents. The Valg inside of the king focuses on killing Aylin's lineage so that nothing could threaten his possession of the king.
We briefly flash back to the present, where Mistward is still under attack. Selena realizes that there's a Valg inside of Narok as well. The Valg inside Narok tells the other Valg not to drain Aylin, to keep her alive for now. And then we go back into flashback mode. There's a lot of back and forth. The rest of the flashback follows the aftermath of Aylin's magical outburst. Aylin's mother assumes Maeve is behind this attack and wanted to make them appear weak in front of the King of Otterlin. Aylin is feeling really emotionally numb and barely functioning. She is quickly whisked away from the palace to quote-unquote rest, but Aylin knows it's really to protect others from her and her out-of-control magic. This is when Aylin starts to believe that she's a monster, that she's something dangerous that, quote, needs to be contained and monitored. That shame, as we see, follows her for years. And then we meet Lady Marion, Elid's mom. Lady Marion offers Aylin comfort with stories, brushing her hair and staying by her side as her parents argue. She's trying to keep Aylin calm and grounded. This is also when we start getting into the real meat of Aylin's trauma, which is directly tied to Lady Marion's sacrifice.
A few nights later, Aylin's mother apologizes for everything that happened and gives Aylin a gift, the family's greatest heirloom, the Amulet of Orin, to protect her from harm. Evelyn tells Aylin, quote, never take it off, never lose it. Wear it and know that you are loved, Fireheart, that you are safe, and it is the strength of this, she placed a hand over her heart, that matters. Wherever you go, Aylin, no matter how far, this will lead you home. The Amulet of Orinth is a physical symbol of protection, love, and legacy. It is a way home for Aylin, which is why it's so powerful that this moment is included in the flashback, because Aylin in current time is trying to work through her guilt and shame and find her way back home. But it's not the amulet alone that will guide her home. Her mom places her hand over her heart and reminds Aylin that it is the greatest of this, her heart, that matters most. And in some of their final moments together, Evelyn reminds Aylin that her greatest power isn't magic, it's her heart, her compassion, her courage, and love. Later in this set of chapters, Aylin realizes that the amulet is the third word key. So in this moment, Evelyn isn't just handing Aylin a family heirloom. It is honestly the key to saving the world.
Current moment, Aylin shares that she lost the amulet that very same night, and we learn how and why she lost it as the flashback continues. Aelin lost the Amulet of Orinth the same night her parents were murdered. She woke up in the middle of the night and crawled into bed with her parents, not realizing that they were already dead. That morning, Lady Marian rushed in, saved Aelin, and stayed with her, comforting and protecting her while the manor fell into chaos. When a man returned to finish the job, Lady Marian hid Aelin under the kitchen table and told her to run to the Florian River and hide. Before sending her into the night, Marian whispered, "Tell my lead that I love her very much." Aelin watched from the trees as Marian fought to protect her, buying her time with her life. The moment that Marian was killed, something broke in Aelin and in the world. There was no coming back. Quote, "She knew enough about death to understand that once a head was severed like that, it was over. Knew that Lady Marian, who had loved her husband and daughter so much, was gone. Knew that this was called sacrifice." Aelin fully understands that Lady Marian's death was final. This moment, this sacrifice, is what's haunted Aelin for the last 10 years. This is the moment where little Aelin learns what sacrifice truly means. Marian chose to save Aelin knowing that she'd die. This moment really does shape Aelin's entire belief structure. She feels like she must honor that sacrifice, and her shame comes from feeling like she didn't. This moment also ties into the series' deeper themes around sacrifice and fate. Aelin herself is seen as a sacrifice by the gods, who expect her to give her life to forge the lock and save the world.
As the flashback continues, little Aelin runs for her life through the forest, chased by the man who killed Lady Marian. But just as she reaches the bridge, she discovers that it has been cut. She falls into the freezing river below, realizing that in that final moment that the sacrifice made for her might be in vain. We again flash forward to the current moment where Celaena is still fighting to keep the Valg at bay as they make her relive these traumatic moments. And she acknowledges that it's that sacrifice that broke her. Quote, that moment, Lady Marian had chosen a desperate hope for her kingdom over herself, over her husband and the daughter who would wait and wait for a return that would never come. That was the moment that had broken everything Aelin Galathynius was and had promised to be. Celaena was lying on the ground, on the bottom of the world, on the bottom of hell. That was the moment she could not face, had not faced. For even then, she had known the enormity of that sacrifice. Lady Marian chose Aelin's life over her own, over her family, and Aelin has never been able to forgive herself for surviving when Marian didn't. Aelin became Celaena to avoid this pain and to bury that broken promise and escape the guilt. Celaena wasn't just changed by the grief and trauma, but also by the knowledge that her life was bought with someone else's. And now, trapped in this Valg flashback memory attack, Aelin is facing that moment. Aelin's memories after falling into the Florian River are foggy, just ice, black water, and strange light, until she woke up to find a Robin crouched over her. She had lost the Amulet of Ornith in the river, or so she thinks.
In the aftermath, Aelin buried her pain and let hate and rage reshape her into someone new, someone who could survive. She suppressed her grief and guilt, locking it away deep inside her, never letting herself feel it. And that's why she never went back to Terrasen or made any attempts to reclaim her title. Quote, "She had taken Lady Marian's sacrifice and become a monster, almost as bad as the one who had murdered Lady Marian and her own family. That was why she did not go home." Again, she sees her transformation into Celaena Sardathian as a betrayal of the hope and love that Lady Marian died to protect. That's why she clings to being Celaena, because she betrayed who Aelin was supposed to be, and she still can't see a way back to that. We knew this all along, but it's clear that her choice to stay away from Terrasen is self-imposed punishment. Celaena admits for the first time that Nehemia's death, which was meant to be a catalyst, was another sacrifice wasted on someone too broken to act. The weight of all of this pins Celaena to the ground physically. She feels like there's nowhere left to run, there's no more truths left to face. The Valg princes don't need to torment her anymore. She's already defeated, broken, and ready to be delivered to the king.
But then someone steps in to save her. Quote, "There was a scrape and a crunch of shoes. Then a small, smooth hand slid towards her. But it was not Kale or Sam or Nehemia who lay across from her, watching her with those sad turquoise eyes. Her cheeks against the moss, the young princess she had been, Aelin Galathynius, reached a hand for her. 'Get up,' she said softly. Celaena shook her head. Aelin strained for her, bridging that rift in the foundation of the world. 'Get up. A promise for a better life, a better world.' The Valg princess paused. She had wasted her life, wasted Marion's sacrifice. Those slaves had been butchered because she had failed, because she had not been there in time. Get up, someone said beyond the young princess. Sam, standing just where she could see, smiling faintly. Get up, another voice, a woman's voice, Nehemia. Get up, two voices together, her mother and father, faces grave but eyes bright. Her uncle was beside them, the crown of Tirison on his silver hair. Get up, he told her, gently. One by one, like shadows emerging from the mist, they appeared, the faces of the people she had loved with her heart of wildfire. And then there was Lady Marian, smiling beside her husband. Get up, she whispered, her voice full of that hope for the world and for the daughter she would never see again. This scene is so powerful. Like, when I tell you, when I was rereading this, I was like, tears, 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 tears. Selena is at her lowest point. She is broken and she is just ready to give up. And one by one, the people that she had loved and lost tell her to get up and fight, girl. Like, get your ass up. But it all starts with her, the youngest version of herself, because that's who Selena has to face first. Aelin, herself, her guilt, her past. And then each person who appears represents a piece of her story. Sam, Nehemia, her parents, her uncle, Lady Marian. But they don't offer comfort. They offer this same command: get up. Not because they're disappointed in her, but because they still believe in her. They still believe in the idea of a better world. It's everything she needed to face and needed to hear.
The vowed princes try one last time to break her, warping the faces of her family into hateful illusions that call her a traitor, coward, and murderer. But even through the pain, Selena still loves them. That love, that stubborn heart, is what helps her hold on. But they all disappear, leaving only her younger self beside her, hands still reaching and the ground solid beneath her once more. And that snaps her out of it. Quote, there was solid ground beneath her, moss and grass, not hell, earth. The earth on which her kingdom lay, green and mountainous and as unyielding as its people. Her people. Her people waiting for 10 years, but no longer. She could see the snow-capped staghorns, the wild tangle of Oakwald at their feet, and Orinth, that city of light and learning, once a pillar of strength, and her home. It would be both again. She would not let that light go out. She would fill the world with it, with her light, her gift. She would light up the darkness so brightly that all who were lost or wounded or broken would find their way to it, a beacon for those who still dwelled in that abyss. It would not take a monster to destroy a monster, but light to drive out darkness. She was not afraid. Rereading this had me fully ugly crying, fully. Aelin realizes that she's in her body, on Earth, not in the hell that the vowed princes are trying to trap her in. She's reminded of Tirison, of who she is and who she's fighting for. Her people have waited long enough. Aelin again realizes that she is the fire, she is the light. She will fight with that light, not with hatred. She rejects the idea that only a monster can destroy a monster, and she chooses hope and light. And finally, she says that she is not afraid. The words that Sam taught her to repeat to herself over and over.
And honestly, this is so true, though, because the light is what ends up killing them in the end anyways. So, wow, we love her. And this is Selena's turning point, her reclaiming. And so she makes a new promise. Quote, she would remake the world, remake it for them, those she had loved with this glorious, burning heart. A world so brilliant and prosperous that when she saw them again in the afterworld, she would not be ashamed. She would build it for her people, who had survived this long and whom she would not abandon. She would make for them a kingdom such as there had never been, even if it took until her last breath. She was their queen, and she could offer them nothing less. This promise is so different from the other promises we've seen Selena make. The promise of this purpose isn't rage or vengeance. This promise comes from a place of hope and responsibility. It is not fueled by her guilt or grief. It's fueled by love and legacy. With this promise, Selena chooses to live for others rather than die for them. She wants to build a better world, not just destroy the old one. And most importantly, she claims her title. She says, quote, she was their queen. She belongs to her people, and she will simply not abandon them.
And with that promise, younger Aelin tells Selena to get up one final time. Quote, Aelin Galathinius smiled at her, hands still outstretched. Get up, the princess said. Selena reached across the earth between them and brushed her fingers against Aelin's. And arose. Can we just take a moment? Younger Aelin tells her to get up, and SJM is so intentional here. She says that Selena is who reaches for younger Aelin and then gets up. I really do think that this is the moment when Selena accepts herself as Aelin again. Yes, she still references herself as Selena in the third person for a little bit longer, but this is the moment.
And then we enter Rowan's POV. The barrier falls, but the darkness doesn't advance because the Valg have what they really want, which is Aelin. They're too focused on torturing her to care really about anything else. And Rowan is being physically held back by Gabriel and Lorcan. He wants to run into the blackness to get Aelin, even though it could mean his death. And also, he starts to hear Lyria's voice, but he knows that it's a trick. He fights against the illusion by reminding himself that Aelin is who is real to him right now. Rowan knows Aelin's alive because they've become bonded, which, okay, bombastic side eye. But anyways, Rowan is willing to fight the cadre, even threatening to kill them, just to go get his girl. And then it happens. A light flickers through the darkness, which should be impossible because Aelin should have burned out by now. And Rowan realizes that she must have figured a way to fight back. Quote, the creatures fed on despair and pain and terror. But what if the victim let go of those fears? What if the victim walked through them, embraced them? And this is exactly what Aelin did to fight the Valg. Aelin embraces her pain, and by doing that, she strips the Valg of their power over her. And the moment she stops fighting her pain and accepts it as part of her story, she reclaims her control, which, slay queen. Rowan sees another flame go up from the darkness and takes off towards her. When he spots Aelin, there is a strange mark glowing on her brow, which is Brandon's mark or the nameless mark. Aelin grabs two of the Valg by their faces and breathes fire into them, burning them from the inside out. Slay. Rowan watches her, stunned. He is like, what the hell? But Aelin is fading fast. Her magic flickers, her smile is tired, and a final burnout is coming.
And Rowan knows what he has to do. He cuts his palm and runs for her, ready to give her his power. Let's fucking go, Karanam reveal. Quote, Rowan reached her, panting and bloody. She did not dishonor him by asking him to flee as he extended his bleeding palm, offering his raw power to harness now that she was well and truly emptied. She knew it would work. She had suspected it for some time now. They were good. Thunder. They were Karanam. Earth is also screaming. The buildup to this Karanam reveal is everything. The fact that Rowan is the one who even tells her that this exists, the way that Selena notices that their magic plays together, and that we know just how rare it is that the Karanam even exists. And there is no hesitation in this moment from either of them. They go for it, full force. And Aelin realizes that Rowan came for her. He didn't leave her alone, once again. She slices her palm right over the scar she gave herself at Nehemia's grave and asks Rowan, to whatever end? He nods, they join hands, and he whispers into her ear, I claim you too, Aelin Galathinius. I literally want to throw up. I love them so much. I loved this whole scene.
It's honestly, like, it just can't get much better than that. I'm sorry. As they face the darkness together as Karanam, Aelin thinks, quote, yet this was not the end. This was not her end. She had survived loss and pain and torture. She had survived slavery and hatred and despair. She would survive this too, because hers was not a story of darkness. So she was not afraid of that crushing black, not with the warrior holding her, not with the courage that having one true friend offered, a friend who made living not so awful after all, not if she were with him. Our girl is a survivor. Cue the song. I'm a survivor. I'm a good. I forgot the rest of it, actually. Aelin wants to fight back. And part of that is because Rowan is there. He becomes so much more than her trainer. He's proof that she is not alone. And that one line, quote, a friend who made living not so awful after all, is honestly genuinely devastating because everyone needs a friend. Having a friend, having Rowan, is what gives Aelin courage to fight back, to live. I don't know about you, but when I'm in my dark times, I'm like, I just need my bestie girls. And then, life feels a little bit more worth living. And that's what she's feeling in this moment. And so she does fight back. Using the Karanam bond, Aelin and Rowan kill the two remaining Valg. They burn them to ash, flooding them with so much light that even Narok briefly looks human again before he's destroyed, leaving only 4 steaming word collar stones behind.
Selena sleeps for 2 days after the battle, healing while Rowan hides the wordstone collars and his cadre helps clean up and bury the dead. Only Gabriel stays behind to say goodbye and gives them a subtle warning about Maeve, risking Maeve's wrath to protect Rowan and Aelin. Gabriel also asks Aelin how old she is because, internally, he's afraid that he might be her daddy. He's got the wrong Ash River, though, so that's good. Rowan takes Aelin to a forest pool, which, I would love to go to wherever this was, where this scene takes place. They talk about the consequences of her battle and how Otterlin will know that she's alive now, and she'll be hunted. As they relax in the forest, Aelin suddenly realizes that the Amulet of Orinth, given to her by her mother, is the third word key, hidden in plain sight for generations. She believes Erebin took it from her the night he found her, and she must get it back. That's why she has to return to Rifthold before anyone else finds out what it truly is.
Aelin wants to tell Rowan, but can't. He is still blood-bound to Maeve, and she could force him to reveal it. As always, Maeve ruins the moment, but we get another hint that Aelin has a plan. Quote, he looked away toward Goldrin, discarded behind them on the rock. She told him its history this morning as she scarfed down enough food for 3 full-grown Fae warriors. He hadn't seemed particularly impressed, and when she showed him the ring she found in the scabbard, he had nothing to say other than, quote, I hope you find a good use for it. Indeed. Remember, Aelin has been multitasking. She's a multitasking queen. She put together that Maeve might find Athriel's ring valuable because she supposedly loved Athriel. So she indeed has found a good use for this ring. We talked about this in episode 5 of our Heir of Fire deep dives, but the reason Maeve actually ends up freeing Rowan in exchange for this ring is because the ring grants the wearer immunity from the Valg. And in Kingdom of Ash, Aelin slips this ring onto Maeve's finger and destroys her.
And because she can't tell him the truth about what she figured out about the Amulet of Orinth, Aelin offers Rowan something else. Quote, once upon a time, she said to him, to the world, to herself, in a land long since burned to ash, there lived a young princess who loved her kingdom very much. And then she told him of the princess whose heart had burned with wildfire, of the mighty kingdom in the north, of its downfall, and of the sacrifice of Lady Marion. It was a long story, and sometimes she grew quiet and cried, and during those times, he leaned over to wipe away her tears. Again, I was also in tears rereading this. This is one of the most iconic lines in this series, but this is also Aelin's full truth. And it is so beautiful that the first time that she shares her entire full truth, it is with Rowan, her mate, her Karnam, her friend. And in this moment, it's her story again.
I love them. I love them so much. And Rowan listens, and when Aelin is done, they have a moment. Quote, when she finished, Rowan merely passed her more of the tonic. She smiled at him, and he looked at her for a while before he smiled back. A different smile than all the other ones he'd given her before. Hello. You are in love. You are in love with each other, okay? You are in love with each other. There's something so tender and sweet about this moment. Rowan is looking at her for a while before smiling back. That's called taking in the moment, buddy. Taken in the fucking moment. And he's taking her in because Aelin just gave him all of herself. And she told him her entire story. There's really no lies between them anymore. There's nothing between them other than the fact, things that she can't share because of the blood oath with Maeve. But still, this is a big piece that she has not shared with anyone else. Period. But nothing happens because the slow burn here is very fucking real. After this, Aelin manages to summon a single droplet of water, her mother's magic, and Rowan teases her, then tosses her into the forest pool. And now it's time to move forward, to Maeve, to answers, and possibly to war. Aelin says goodbye to Emrys and Luca, promising the Demi-Fae a home in her future court and offering Emrys and Malachi a place in her household. Emrys tells her, your mother would be proud, which again has me on the ground sobbing, crying, because it's just so cute. And this Mistword section ends with Aelin and Rowan walking into the forest bound for Doranel and all that awaits for them there.
And now to Rifthold. A few days after the slave massacre, Dorian is visiting Sorsha in her workroom. During this visit, Dorian notices Sorsha throw a letter away that she was writing. This letter is meant for Ren, and this letter actually becomes Sorsha's downfall. The king uses this letter to call Sorsha a rebel and have her beheaded. But let's not focus on that yet, because they also share a sweet moment during this visit. Dorian calls Sorsha's smile the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. Their peace is interrupted when Kale walks in, looking very serious. Dorian insists that Kale explain everything to both him and Sorsha as his price for helping Kale. Dorian wants the truth about the magic, the word keys, the towers, all of it.
And as Kale gives them the download, Sorsha remains calm. Dorian kisses her before leaving, and Kale watches them, realizing how deeply Dorian cares for her. Kale tells Sorsha, quote, "I think this kingdom could use a healer as its queen." First of all, this makes me want to fucking throw up. This whole Sorsha storyline is so fucking sick and twisted. Like, literally sick and twisted. Because healers are the cure to the Valk, and Sorsha never gets to see that because the king has her killed. And we know that Sorsha would have fought. And at the end of Kingdom of Ash, it would have been so fitting if Adarlan had a healer as its queen. It also makes me sick for Dorian that Kale ends up with Yrene, who is a healer, while Dorian has to watch his healer be beheaded. Like, how fucking sick is that? Like, thinking back, like, SJM, you are sick and twisted, girlfriend.
And so, Kale and Dorian run an experiment using 3 magic conducting crystals and a bowl of water, arranged in a triangle to mimic the placement of the 3 mysterious black towers across the continent. I love this, lab experiment situation that we had going on. Dorian channels his magic into the crystals, forming a current that freezes the water, which confirms their theory that the king used the towers to block magic across Aurelia. The towers are located in Rifthold, Amaroth, and Knoll, and the lines between them pass through very interesting places like Morath and the Farian Gap. These areas have been connected to dark breeding experiments, aka the Wyvern and the other freaky things that are going on at Morath, and disappearances. They suspect the towers form a magical current. Destroying one tower could break the spell, but it's a huge risk. But Dorian tells Kale he accepts the risk and the power he holds, saying that he wouldn't want to return to who he was before. He tells Kale, don't fear it. And Kale is shook by Dorian's words. Quote, Dorian left and Kale opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was too stunned. When Dorian had spoken, it hadn't been a prince who looked at him. It had been a king. Kale's always believed in Dorian's ability to lead and be a king. That's why Kale even became captain of the guard, because Dorian is who he actually wants to serve. They've all changed, Dorian included, and Kale is just now noticing because he's had a lot of things going on. Dorian is showing that he can lead with courage even when change is scary, even when it goes against his father. Days later, Aedion tells Ren and Murtaugh to leave for Surya in 2 days to avoid being discovered. Kale tells him that he's leaving for Aniel to act as a spy on the inside.
But their meeting is interrupted by Murtaugh, who bursts in to announce that Aelin is alive, and the news is spreading all over the city. She was seen fighting in Wendlin with fire magic, defeating Narok and his legion. People are saying she has a power that has not been seen since Brandon himself. They're all shook, but Aedion realizes just what this means. Quote, "It was a message to the world. Aelin was a warrior, able to fight with blade or magic, and she was done with hiding." Aelin has spent so long being afraid of what people would think about her background as an assassin, but Aedion immediately reframes it here. Aelin isn't just powerful, she's skilled, she's strong. She's not just a queen, she is a warrior. This is her first public act as Aelin Galathinius, heir to Terrasen and future queen, and it is clear that she is ready to fight.
Murtaugh decides to ride north immediately to spread the news of Aelin's return before the king can try to suppress it. Aedion and Ren prepare to stay behind and gather intel. As they part ways, Kale has one request. Quote, Eelway, Kale breathed. Send word to Eelway. Tell them to hold on. Tell them to prepare. Perhaps it was the light. Perhaps it was the cold. But Aedion could have sworn there were tears in the captain's eyes as he said, tell them it's time to fight back. This is Kale's request because Kale knows how important Eelway is to Aelin, how important Nehemia was to her. He wants to make sure they know, especially after the tragedy with the slave massacre. Kale knows that Eelway has suffered greatly under Adarlan's rule, and he wants them to know that they are going to fight back. With this request, Kale is honoring Aelin's values and Nehemia's legacy. Ultimately, As we've said several times, this is Kale choosing Aelin's side and helping her begin to reclaim the world that she wants to build.
Oh, Murtaugh spreads the news, and it is simply beautiful. Quote, and for every town they told, every tavern and secret meeting, more riders went out. More and more, until there was not a road they had not covered, until there was not one soul who did not know that Aelin Galathinius was alive and willing to stand against Adarlan. Across the white fangs and the runes, all the way to the western wastes, and the red-haired queen who ruled from a crumbling castle, to the deserted peninsula and the oasis fortress of the silent assassins. Hooves, hooves, hooves echoed through the continent, sparking against cobblestones, all the way to Bengali and the riverfront palace of the king and queen of Ilwe, still in their midnight morning clothes. Hold on, the riders told the world. Hold on. This is just another moment of this reread that has me fucking tearing up. Important places and people are named for reasons as the news spreads. Ansel in the Western Wastes, the silent assassins in the deserted peninsula, and the king and queen of Ilwe are deeply connected to Aelin's journey when she was Selena. None of these people know who they had befriended yet, but don't fret because they will find out. And you can feel that you can sense that this feels like a celebration. It's not just news, it is a promise that change is fucking coming. Ah, chills, chills.
We end this Rifthold section with Dorian's POV. The King of Adarlan is furious over Aelin's return and victory in Wendlin. Dorian is terrified, but loves that Selena's return was so dramatic. Quote, somewhere in Wendlin, his friend was changing the world. She was fulfilling the promise she'd made him. She had not forgotten him or any of them still here. And perhaps when they figured out a way to destroy that tower and free magic from his father's yoke, she would know her friends had not forgotten her either, that he had not forgotten her. Aelin will always be Dorian's friend, first and foremost. He doesn't care if her return threatens the king. Dorian knows that Aelin is living up to the promise she made, to fight, to free their kingdom, and to return stronger. He wants her to know that even an ocean apart, they're all with her too, that she's not alone in the fight, which again is just what she needs. Dorian is ready to be a part of this change. When the time comes, they'll all fight back together. So Dorian hides his true feelings and lets his father rage out, which the king is pissed. Dorian's main goal is to protect Sorsha, to help Aelin, and hold on to hope for a future where he can be free. This chapter ends with Dorian thinking, quote, when Selena got back, when she returned as she'd sworn she would, then they would set about changing the world together. Yeah. No notes. No analysis there. And there are no witches chapters in this episode, but they'll be back for episode 9.
And next, our favorite moments. These are moments in this set of chapters that we really just loved.
My first favorite moment is from the flashback to the king and Dorian's visit when Aelin first meets Dorian. Quote, he'd already looked down at his food again as if he expected to be neglected for the rest of the night, and he looked lonely enough that she said, if you like, you could be my friend. Not one of the men around them said anything or coughed. Dorian lifted his chin. I have a friend. He is to be Lord of Aniel someday and the fiercest warrior in the land. I just love this moment. It's so full circle. Aelin ends up being Dorian and Kale's friend. I love that Dorian's response is that he has Kale and he doesn't need anyone else. I also love that SJM isn't afraid to put the friendship between two men front and center. Dorian and Kale are deeply emotional about their loyalty, their care, and their love for each other. It really just reminds me that friendship and connection is so central to this series. And my second favorite moment is definitely the scene when all of Aelin's loved dead ones return and tell her to get up. Everyone is there. Her younger self, her parents, Nehemia, Sam, Lady Marion. It just feels very powerful and ancestral. Each of them represents a different part of who she is and what she's fighting for. Aelin is never alone, and I think that entire scene is such a beautiful way to portray that.
I also have two favorite moments from this chapters because, why the fuck would I not? I actually had 6 of them, but I struggled with cutting them down. But I feel like these two were the ones that made me cry a little bit. The first one is, quote, the darkness had no end and no beginning. It was the abyss that had haunted her steps for 10 years, and she free fell into it, welcomed it. There was no sound, only the vague sense of going towards a bottom that might not exist, or that might mean her true end. Maybe the Valk Princess had devoured her, turning her into a husk. Maybe her soul was forever trapped here, in this plunging darkness. Perhaps this was hell. The reason why this is my favorite moment is because I feel like there's so many times in this series or in this book, especially because we know that this book is about like Aelin, Selena transforming into Aelin and her accepting her past. I feel like this was the point in time where like she really turned around and was like, this is hell. Like, this is simply hell for me. And then this is what makes her like hit rock bottom, but then skyrocket up and like her finally be able to accept like, this is who I am. And like, I'm not going to let this darkness devour me. Like the Valg are trying to show me that it can. And also like, this is one of my favorite moments because we will talk about this definitely in the Massverse episode, but like there's just so many interesting things here. And I think that's also why like this part intrigues me a little. But anyways, my second favorite moment from this set of chapters is one that I just read, so I'm not going to read it all again because I literally just read it like 2 minutes ago. But it's when they're spreading the word that Aelin is alive, and I think that this is the first moment in this series that like there truly is hope that like there is a better world to come. And honestly, like I just think that like every time I read this moment, like I get chills through my body because it does set the precedent of like what is to come and like what people are looking forward to and what people have been hoping will happen eventually. And I feel like this is really the beginning of the end for the king. And not that like I don't hate the king, like obviously fuck the Valg, but it's the beginning and the end of the Valg, the king, like all that shit, you know? And it just is, it's just also a really beautiful moment because this is the moment that like Adian also realizes that like people have not been lying to him and that Aelin is actually alive. And I don't know, it just all comes together so beautifully. So, and next up we have our final thoughts.
I think these chapters are just like so special. I literally teared up like 3 or 4 times just reading parts of this. I especially love the way that Selena has to face her younger self as like younger Aelin. It always gets me because I think it's such a beautiful way to portray healing from trauma, especially childhood trauma. I love Heir of Fire so much because I think it's just a fantastic portrayal of crawling your way out of rock bottom. Also, these chapters feel so hopeful, like Aelin's back, everything's good, and it's really like the last bit of hope we get because shit is really about to hit the fan, but you can really feel the hope both in Mistward and in Rifthold.
My final thoughts are that these chapters were fucking rough, brother. I was dead ass trying to hold myself together as I was reading these chapters. The flashbacks kill me. Also, I'm gonna be so real. I don't think that when I read this for the first time that I got the connection between Alid and Alid being Marian's daughter until way later. Like, I don't think I had any idea, like when Alid was first introduced, that like Marian was her mother. But now it makes so much sense because I remember being initially like, who the fuck is this Elite girl and why is it important? But like now it simply makes sense. But also like this set of chapters made me realize that like the cadre were really never fucking with Maeve, like fully, to be honest, because they came to Rowan's aid knowing that they could have potentially been hurt by Maeve. And I also think that it's really cool knowing that like Gabriel is basically related to Aelin in some way, shape, or form. And he is the one who shows a little bit of ounce of care here. But looking back, like it makes sense, obviously, because he does think that she is his daughter. But like also, like it's cool because in the long run, he ends up being Adian's daddy. So yeah. Also I saw your faces when I said like I didn't remember who Alid was, and like I know, like looking back, I'm like, why did I not know? Because I just remember reading her chapters in Empire of Storms and just being like, who the fuck is Alid?
It
Like
took
I
you
don't know
until
who this
Empire of
is.
Storms?
Because she doesn't come into Empire of Storms, doesn't she?
I'm sorry. Yes, well, no, she does. She's in Queen of Shadows with Manon.
Is she? Or is
She's
that
all
Empire?
over Queen of Shadows. No, I think she's
I don't
all over
know.
Queen of Shadows.
It
I just
really
think it's
took me a
funny
long
because,
time.
like, in the flashback, Lady Marian is like, tell Maya Lead that I love her
I
very
know.
much.
It just like simply went over my head. Not went over my head. I think I was just like, la di da di da. I'm just reading along. And then like it just, I don't know. That wraps up our deep dives for chapters 52 through 58 for Heir of Fire. We hope you enjoyed our analysis and theories. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok where our handle is at bookishroomspod.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on these chapters, so drop us a comment or send us a message. Also, leave us a rating if you like what you heard. It really helps us out.
Join us next week when we continue our Heir of Fire deep dives with chapters 59 through 62. Until then, keep reading, Assassins.
Bye!